pause for a moment right where you are. Take a deep breath. This moment of existence you find yourself in is part of a vast cycle that has been unfolding on this world for 4 billion years. Every living species was shaped by the natural workings of this cycle. Marine creatures adapted to water, birds of prey to the sky, desert animals to the harshest conditions imaginable. A process of refinement spanning millions of years settled every living thing perfectly into its own habitat. And then you came into the world. After just 15 minutes under the sun, your skin turns noticeably red. You probably feel an ache in your back right now. And on top of all that, you lie awake at night unable to sleep, your mind drifting toward the endless stretch of your existence. You are not alone in this on Earth. But what if none of this is coincidence? What if these extraordinary peculiarities are actually signs that you do not belong here? You do not need to be out of your mind to ask this unsettling question. Francis Crick, the man who unraveled the structure of DNA in 1973 and was deemed worthy of a Nobel Prize, asked this very question. And the answer he arrived at was anything but reassuring. But before we get there, take a look at your body. Really look at it. Human skin is the most vulnerable to sunlight of all mammals on this planet. A lizard can sit in direct sun for hours with nothing happening. An elephant lives in the Sahara and its skin never peels. A dog spends its entire life under the same sun and has never once thought about sunscreen. But you? You were forced to manufacture a kind of chemical paste just to be able to go outside. Think about that. You are the only species that needs chemistry laboratories to protect itself from the sun of its own planet. Now focus on your back. More than 80% of people experience chronic lower back pain at some point in their lives. This is not a random occurrence. Our spine was originally shaped for a horizontal posture. We inherited it from an ancestor that walked on 4 legs millions of years ago, and that structure was essentially patched up for standing upright rather than properly designed for it. Kangaroos stand upright but do not suffer from back pain because their spines were built specifically for that purpose. Ours, on the other hand, is like a hastily constructed bridge that never stops swaying. Then there is childbirth. Human birth is the most dangerous of all mammals on Earth. A foal is born and stands on its feet within the hour. A human infant cannot even hold its own head up for months. And before modern medicine, childbirth was one of the leading causes of death for women. Our brain is so large inside our skull that it barely fits through the birth canal. It is as though evolution made us intelligent while forgetting to account for something else entirely. The way our bodies produce allergic reactions is equally puzzling. The fundamental purpose of our immune system is to protect us from outside threats. Yet the system wages war against pollen that has been in our environment for millions of years, against pet fur, shellfish, and dust. 1 in every 3 people on Earth struggles with allergies. Our own defense mechanism is forming a front line against the very world we live in. This either stems from an evolutionary flaw, or it is the result of a mechanism calibrated for another environment, one that does not quite work properly in the wrong setting. And the strangest part of all is this: no living creature knows it is going to die. Dogs do not lie in their beds in the evening wondering what tomorrow will bring. Dolphins have no existential anguish. Elephants do not follow religions, but we humans do. In fact, every human society throughout our entire history has placed the question of what comes after death at its very center. We built temples to answer this question, wrote philosophical texts, and even started wars over it. And yet, when we examine it through an evolutionary lens, what advantage did this awareness actually give us? More often than not, it produces nothing more than an irrational, suffocating, paralyzing existential dread. It is worth asking what survival benefit could possibly explain this. Now, let us look at the idea Francis Crick put forward. In 1973, the scientist who decoded the DNA molecule published a paper alongside Leslie Orgel in which he made the following claim: "The origin of life on Earth is not here. It was deliberately placed here by an advanced civilization living on another planet." He called this theory directed panspermia. The very person who cracked the mystery of DNA upon examining the clues about DNA's own origins concluded that it did not belong here. There is a great deal of evidence supporting this. The Earth formed roughly 4.5 billion years ago. Consider that the planet was still under the influence of asteroid impacts. Its surface was still cooling, and yet life appeared almost instantaneously. Biologists have always found this rapid emergence somewhat strange. It is as though life did not take root here, but arrived from somewhere else. The Murchison meteorite that fell in Australia in 1969 contained more than 90 different types of amino acids. Some of them were identical to the amino acids found in every living organism on Earth. This shows that organic molecules can be transported through space on rocks. We also know that life is capable of enduring the conditions of space. Tardigrades, those tiny 8-legged creatures, were exposed to the vacuum of space, cosmic radiation, and temperatures close to absolute zero, and they survived. In fact, it is believed that some of the tardigrades carried to the moon by an Israeli spacecraft in 2019 may still be alive up there. In 2013, ecologist Dr. Ellis Silver brought these physiological findings together in his book, "Humans Are Not From Earth." Cases like sunburn, back pain, allergies, difficult births, and especially the fact that human circadian rhythms are slightly out of sync with a 24-hour cycle, making us the only mammal with this misalignment, are striking. Our biological clock seems to show a slight drift, as though it was set to the day length of another planet. But here, scientific thinking splits into two separate paths, and the second path is at least as fascinating as the first. The mainstream evolutionary biology branch of science explains most of these peculiarities. On back pain, they say this: "We began walking upright roughly 6 million years ago. In evolutionary terms, that is a very short time. Our spine is still a prototype that has not yet reached its final form." On sunburn, when our ancestors migrated from the forests of Africa to the open savannas, they needed to run long distances to hunt. Hairless skin made sweating easier and gave them incredible endurance, but sunburn became the price of that adaptation. As for difficult births, our brain grew too quickly for the pelvis to keep up. As evolution tried to make us both smarter and more upright, the pelvis was caught in that rapid development and became stuck. This is known as the obstetric dilemma. While the theory of evolutionary mismatch answers many questions, it cannot fully account for one of the most pressing of all, which is speed. In 4 billion years of life on this planet, no species has ever demonstrated the kind of progress we have. Dolphins, for instance, have existed for 50 million years. They are highly intelligent, possess complex social structures, and are capable of communication, yet they have never felt the need to create a single tool. Chimpanzees discovered a simple stick 4 million years ago and have introduced no innovation since. We humans, by contrast, moved from stone tools to nuclear weapons, from cave paintings to artificial intelligence, from flint to robots sent to Mars, all within roughly 2 million years. Just 200 years ago, there were no railways. 125 years ago, airplanes did not exist. We only reached space 75 years ago, and the internet only became widespread 35 years ago. Evolutionary biology has not yet been able to fully explain this breathtaking pace. Was it the development of language, the use of fire, a mutation in the FOXP2 gene? All of these factors may have contributed, but none of them alone is sufficient to explain this leap. Scientists like Crick and Silver could not fully account for it either. Modern science can make sense of the individual pieces of this progress, but struggles to draw a comprehensive picture. And that uncertainty is the very thing keeping the question alive. We are probably not aliens. The evolutionary evidence is quite solid, and in all likelihood, we are a natural product of this planet. But in that small space between probably and certainly, something awaited the scientist who decoded DNA. And in that space, a secret lies waiting. I want to ask you something now. Have you ever turned this question toward yourself? Why do you feel such unease when you look up at the sky? Why does something tighten inside you when you fix your gaze on the stars? Why does the question of how vast the universe is keep you from sleeping? Perhaps this is a byproduct of millions of years of evolutionary curiosity, or perhaps, against very small odds, it is the reflection of a longing, an expression of the feeling of never quite belonging anywhere, while at the same time never knowing where you do belong. We are the strangest creatures living on this planet, a species that burns under its own sun, breaks under its own gravity, and yet cannot stop gazing at the sky with something it cannot hold back. If we are from here, we are the most remarkable thing this planet has ever produced. And if we are not from here, we have been trying to find our way home for 200,000 years without even knowing where home is.